Hi and welcome to Kandji Okta Device Trust configuration with Patrick from Flexible. Okay, so what are the requirements to enable Okta Device Trust with Kandji? So we need Apple Business Manager, and this is only in order that we can take the Okta Verify app into Kandji from Apple Business Manager and push it to the devices. Your devices actually don't need to be inside Apple Business Manager, so clients that have been manually enrolled are also going to be party to the policies that we can push later on. We obviously need a Kandji MDM tenant. I've been using Kandji for a few years now. It's by far the best Apple MDM that I've ever come across. So easy to use, the support guys are great. And then we need an Okta Workforce Identity tenant on Okta Identity Engine. So if you've had Okta for a long time, it might be a requirement that you need to ask the support people to upgrade you to Identity Engine. If not, you should be good to go. So today we're going to cover the setup of Kandji Device Trust for Okta. There are some prerequisites like having Apple Business Manager configured against your Kandji tenants. That's not shown, but maybe if you want, I'll make another video on that setup later. On to the initial setup of Apple Business Manager. Okay, so the first step is configuring Apple apps. So what we need to do is go into Apple Business Manager and add a location. If we don't already have one, I'm adding a test location, and then adding the Okta Verify app. So here in Apple Business Manager, I've already created a test location, so it doesn't interfere with my production tenant. And then we simply go to Apps. And you can see Okta Verify here. So I've already got it added for my main location. So I can just add a new choose my new location, add whatever quantity. It's free, it really doesn't matter. Click on Get. So now we can see that in my test location I have 10 licenses available for Apple Business Manager. So in reality that really is all we need to do in Apple Business Manager. So the next step will be on to configuring that to push to your selected devices in Kandji. Okay, so the next step is to ensure that the apps are pushing into Kandji from Apple Business Manager. So if we jump into Apple Business Manager, we can see, let me just move my head, that in this tenant I haven't configured Apple Books yet. So if I go to Settings, it tells me exactly how to do that. So I go to my ABM, go to Preferences, Payments and Billing, and when that loads, Apple Business Manager is crazy slow today. I see my test location here. I just click download to download that certificate. I jump back to my Kandji and move my head again. Open. Put myself back over here. And then complete. And now we can see that Apps and Books is configured. So we've got automatically update apps turned on. So if I go back to settings, Apple integrations again, just to check, you can see that I haven't got any devices, but I can see all my information here. Okay, great. I've already configured a basic Kandji level 1 assignment map. So what we need to now do is add the library item for Okta Verify. So I can see that it's synced here, but it's not assigned anywhere. So what we need to do is just check the settings. So click anywhere on there. And we need to make sure that Install and Continually Enforce is selected. We haven't turned this on, Okta Device Trust, on yet because we haven't used it. And obviously we want to ensure that we do update it, so we can close that. It all looks good. If I go to my assignment map, go to library items, go to assignment map, edit assignments, and we've got Okta Verify. Just drag it in here. That's click save. Click save. So for now, that is our application ready to deploy to all assigned devices, all done. So I'll see you in the next part where we will start to configure Okta Device Trust in kandji. Okay, so now we've got the Verify app ready to push to our devices in kandji and Apple Business Manager. We need to configure Okta FastPass, so we're moving on to step 2. I've put a link in the notes for you to sign up for a free Okta trial. You just need a business ID email and you get a 30-day free trial. So this is a brand new tenant. I've not done any configuration in here. So there's a couple of things that we need to configure for FastPass. So first is, let me move my face. The first is the global session policy. And from my memory, this actually comes ready to go in new tenants. So the default rule, we can actually add some specifics around who gets this rule, but essentially any factor that, so basically we're going to manage the policies in the authentication policy and ensure that multi-factor authentication is not required, again because we manage that in the authentication policies, and really you can do whatever you want in this session management section. So the default session management policy or global session policy is good to go. Next we go to authenticators. So this Okta Verify is where we configure FastPass. So if we go to actions here and edit, again this new tenant seems to have everything ready, so I actually don't want push notifications, but the important thing here is Okta FastPass is enabled on all platforms. You can show this button or not, do some reading on that. I've not found it to be or not be any use whatsoever. Users can only use higher security methods for the purposes of the demo. I'm not going to care about any of this, but generally I would select higher security methods so you can bootstrap between devices or use the same device. It reduces the risk of phishing. But let's go back to any method for now. And then required, so biometrics is required, so when they open FastPass they're going to need to authenticate with a registered biometric, generally fingerprint or face ID depending on the device. So we save that and then we go to our authentication policy. Okay, so now we're going to configure the authentication policy. So this is a vanilla environment. I would normally put a catch-all rule into any rule I was messing with to ensure I didn't get locked out. But as soon as I don't care about getting locked out of this client or this tenant, we're going to play only with the Okta dashboard because I don't have any applications configured. So if we click on Okta dashboard under authentication policies here, we're going to add a rule, and we're basically going to add 3 rules. One is going to grant access to things based on devices being managed. Rule 2 is going to grant access to apps that are not managed but registered. And then the rule 3 would deny everyone. So for the purposes of this, let's just create rule 1, managed allow. And then here's where we can use group memberships to make people members of this policy, because it's a good idea to roll this out in chunks so you don't lock everyone out of everything. And then we can say that device is registered and managed. And then all of the rest is dependent on your specific requirements. But for the sake of this, we're just going to leave it as default, super relaxed. So it's going to be ask for a password, and then it's going to be Okta Verify. So we'll do every time a user signs in. It's easier to demonstrate, but that's really it. So yes, I want to save this rule. I know it's not safe. And then I'm going to leave that as number 2 because my number 1 rule will allow me to get access. And then I'm going to add another rule, which, if you remember, is just registered devices but not managed. Registered. Allow, again, we would lock it down by groups, and then we'll say registered and not managed, and then we'll leave the authentication exactly the same. And then we'll click save. Again, I know it's weak, we'll go back and save anyway. And then we would, in principle, actually create another rule at the end, which would deny everybody, but in this case we're not going to do that again. It's just for trial, so it doesn't really matter. Maybe later on when I'm demonstrating, I'll put that rule in so that you can see the fact that the policies go through in order. And then if you don't meet the criteria of any of the top rules, then you would be denied everything. So that's it. In essence, our Okta dashboard is now protected by FastPass. Let's move on to the next part, which is actually configuring a Okta and kandji Device Trust. Okay, so we've set up Okta FastPass. Now we're going to configure Okta Device Trust on the kandji side. So let's get started. So here we are in kandji. We just go down to integrations. We've clearly got no integrations. It's a clean tenant. Go to Discover Integrations and scroll down, and we've got Okta Device Trust. Click on Add and Configure. Shows you a couple of the things that you need. We've already done that. We've got Identity Engine and we've configured FastPass. As I found when I just logged into my trial tenant, because it enforced me to add my account to Okta Verify, which is exactly as expected. So if I just grab my tenant ID, and then we need to sign on to Okta with a super admin account. So we just click on sign in to Okta and install and authorize. And we're just going to copy the client secret, so I'm going to pop that in a note that I'm keeping elsewhere. It's a good idea to make a note of all of these things as you go along, in case you need them, and then either move them to a secure password manager or delete them once you're done. So I'll copy that. Okay. So now we can see the view setup instructions. This is what we need to complete the setup. But that's just giving you all of the information I'm going to follow through now. So we go back to our kandji tenant and we click next. So we just need to jump back into Okta to grab those. So the client ID and the client secret. Client ID we've got here. Client secret is what we copied earlier. I'll just grab it from up here. And we connect to Okta. Now we get the choice of whether we configure macOS or iOS devices. So the difference would be iOS devices are managed natively with a key that's inside the app, and macOS devices actually behave the same as Windows devices, so we need a certificate authority. So for now, we'll select both and continue. Okay, so first we do the macOS platform, and we get all of these details from the Okta server. So I'm just going to pause the video a second while I go and grab those details. Okay, so here we are back in the Okta tenant to grab the the macOS device platform details that we need. So first we need to configure it in here. So we go to security and device integrations and click add platform. So as we're doing macOS to start with, we choose desktop, move my head and click next. Okay, so we just use the Okta CA. If we have our own CA, we can configure it, but we're not going to do that today. And we choose dynamic and generic. Okay, then we can generate the SCEP URL. And I'm just going to make a copy of all of these. I'm just going to pause the video while I do that. Okay, so I've made a copy of all these notes, and I'm going to click on save on the Okta side. So we've got the desktop platform configured, pop back to kandji. Password was the last one I copied, so we paste in the password. The randomly generated username from Okta. The SCP URL and the challenge URL. Click on next. Don't want to save that. Don't want that to pop up at all. And now we're on to iOS. So that's hopefully macOS configured successfully. So we go to iOS. So we go back to our Okta and add another platform. We choose iOS. And then again, make a copy of that iOS secret key. And so I have the iOS secret key copied and located on my file. We just copied it back into kandji, and then we click finish setup. This is not true. It says this regardless. The Okta Verify app is in my library. We saw it earlier and we assigned it. So we just click on sync now. And Okta Device Trust is successfully connected. So now we go and view the integration settings. And then in the Okta, we can see that Okta Device Trust is still turned off here. So we go to the library item and click on edit, and Okta Device Trust, we just need to flip that to on, and we are done with the configuration of Okta Device Trust. Sorry, quickly, we can add any field in the device management provider, so I'm going to call it kandji test in MDM. You can call it anything you want up to 20 characters, I think. And then the enrollment link is, you can see it's kandji.io/enroll. However, we need to take this start of our, so we take this part and then enroll, double L, I think. Yeah. We can now save. And that we are now complete with the Device Trust integration. Moving on to the next step, which will be, we've actually covered 3 steps here. We've configured Device Trust in kandji, added the platforms in Okta, and then configured the platforms in kandji as well. And we actually configured the Okta Verify library item at the start. So in essence, we are completely done with kandji and Okta Device Trust. On the next step, I'll just demonstrate how it works and how it looks to a user. Okay, so the final part. So we can see that I am logged into my Okta tenant. What I'm going to do is close these, and I'm going to sign out of that tenant to force force the sign in. So you can see I've got this sign in with FastPass option as well. I left that checked. And then if I just quickly open the Verify app for you to see. Okay, too many screens, took me a while to find Verify. So you can see that I mentioned earlier, I added my Okta Verify account already. So here's my configured Flex Test account. So just for your reference, this is what's going to be needed when we sign in as Okta Verify. So here's my username as normal. Click on Next. Verifies my identity. I pop my super secure password in. Click on Verify. And you can see that I can sign into my dashboard as usual. Now let me sign out again, and I will demonstrate. I'll remove this account. Okay, I'll close Okta Verify. Now I want to sign into my trial again. It's asking me to add an account to my Okta to access the Okta dashboard. Now, if I can't add an account, or if you don't have Okta Verify, you'll get a link. But this demonstrates that the whole process is working nicely. If you've got any questions, obviously feel free to reach out in the comments. I tried to reply in a reasonable amount of time, or you can visit us at flexible.sg and have a talk about your security requirements. Thank you and have a great day ahead. It occurred to me that I was just logging in with FastPass and I was not actually hitting any of the managed device rules. And that's because I actually don't have any spare devices with me today to add one to management, but I can show you where you're going to see the devices show up. So once you've got this configured and people add Okta Verify or you push Okta Verify to their devices, the devices will start to show up under devices. So you can see that this is my phone, and this is my MacBook that I'm actually using now. So you can see that I've logged in on my phone, but it's not managed, which means there's not a valid account configured, and that the MacBook again is logged in, but I've removed the account when I was running the demonstration earlier, so that's not managed. So if a device shows as active, that means active not managed, it means it's registered, so it will hit the registered policy, and if it shows active and managed, it means it's fully managed. kandji and Okta are completely happy with it, and it will hit the managed device policy. I did spend a lot of time troubleshooting this on a few occasions, and sometimes the addition of the policy in kandji and Apple, that last step that we did, just doesn't work, and I troubleshoot it for many hours, and it turns out that just removing it and adding it again normally fixes the problem. So if you do see that devices just will not show up as managed, whatever you do and add accounts and do everything you think correctly, just re-add the integration and it should work fine. Thanks for listening.